Hello everyone, my name is Shane and today I'm going to do a tutorial for you guys about how to make a jump button for your character in a 3D environment. So first things first, we have set up a cube which is going to be our platform for our character to stand on, and we have set up our player. Make sure that your cube has a box collider on it, and make sure that your player has a sphere collider as well as a rigid body, which you're going to have to add yourself. So in order to do that, scroll down to this add component and just type in a rigid body. The next step is for you guys to go to the assets store and look for a package called a joystick. And then you're going to want to make sure you click this first joystick package here, and you are going to download it. I have already downloaded it, so I'm going to go back into Unity. I'm going to open up my package manager. For those of you who don't know how, click Window and scroll down to where it says Package Manager, and it should open this up for you. And make sure that you are set to My Assets, and then you will find your joystick pack, and make sure you hit that little import button there at the bottom right. So after you guys have imported your joystick pack, it should come down in your assets inside of this folder. So we're going to use this for two things. One, we're going to use this for the image of our jump button, and two, we're going to use this in the next video where I show you guys how to make player movement with a joystick. Okay, so let's get our canvas set up so we can actually make our joystick. So we're going to go over to UI and we're going to scroll up to Button. Now under this button, we're actually going to click this text object and remove it because we don't need it. And now we're going to click our button and set the width and height both to 200. Now we're going to want to pull this over to one of the corners of our screen. I'm just going to pick the bottom right. You guys are going to want to open your joystick pack folder, go to sprites, click all axis backgrounds, and drag one of these buttons in here. You can use whatever image you want inside of here. It's not going to change anything, but I'm just using this in terms of simplicity for the video. Now that you have your button, you guys are going to be making two scripts. You're going to be making a jump button script and a movement manager script. But let's start with our movement manager. So I'm going to open this up, and I've actually already written this out for you guys, and it is super simple. So the first thing you guys are going to have to do is put in a public rigid body, and you're going to call it RB. Now all this is going to do is take the rigid body that is sitting on your player that we added, and a rigid body deals with the physics of the player, dealing with the movement and the force and things of that nature. And then we'll call it RB, which is short form for rigid body. After that, we're going to be opening a public bool, and we're going to call that isJumping, and we're going to set it to false. The reason we are doing this is because we want the player to be able to jump once, and they have to come back down and hit the ground before they jump again. We don't want them to be able to keep hitting the button over and over and over, just constantly jumping and never hitting the ground. So that is why we made this boolean. Now the last thing you guys are going to need is a private void on collision enter, and make sure you pass in collision with a capital C and a collision with a lowercase c. All we are going to include in here is debug.log hit. You guys don't actually need this for the code to work. For those of you who don't know what this will just show you in your console if you actually hit a object, so you'll be able to debug any issues that come up. But this can be absolutely deleted, no problem. And under it, we're just going to set the isJumping boolean to false. What this means is if the player has collided with something, for example, if they hit the ground, we want to make sure that isJumping is set to false because they're not jumping anymore. They have now landed, which means they will be able to jump again. Once you guys have done this, save your script, go back into Unity, and I want you guys to click on your player and actually drag. Let me close this down there. You guys are going to drag the movement manager onto your player, and it's going to ask you for this rigid body field here. All you have to do is drag your player and put him into that box, and it is going to access this rigid body component. Now that part is completely done. We just have to set up the jump button script. So you guys are going to make a script called jump button, You're going to open it up. And again, I've typed this all out and it's only a few lines of code. So the first part of this script, we're going to put public movement manager, and then we're going to write movement manager again, but with a lowercase m. All this first line of code is going to do is access this script so we can change this boolean to true when the player is jumping. Next, we're going to create a void, which is going to be for our button, and it's actually going to start the jump when we hit our button. So I called this public void jump, and then inside I put an if statement. So all this is saying is if movement manager dot is jumping is equal to false, that means the player is not jumping, he is on the ground. Then we want to say movement manager dot is jumping is equal to true, which means now the player is jumping so they can't press the button again. And then we're actually going to do the calculation to make our player jump, which is just going to be movement manager dot rb, which is accessing that rigid body part of the script. And then we're going to write dot velocity plus equals vector3 dot up multiplied by 5f. If this confuses you guys, it's really simple. We're just going to the movement manager, we're getting that public rigid body, we're adding a velocity to it, and then for our velocity, we are adding the movement of going up, which when you're working in a 3D environment, that would be a vector3. So we're doing vector3 dot up, and we're going to multiply it by however high we want the object to go. So the higher this number is, this 5f, if you set it to 50f, it's going to jump a lot higher than 5f. So the higher the number, the higher your player will jump. The lower the number, the lower your player will jump. Once you guys have finished this, you're going to save your script, go back into Unity, and now we're going to do a couple other things. Inside of our canvas, we are going to create a empty game object, and we are just going to call this scripts. And this is where you guys are going to store your jumping script. Now if you notice, once you drag this in, it's looking for a movement manager. So instead of dragging this over here, because as you see we can't do that, we're actually going to drag our player into that box, because that is where we put the movement manager, is on the player. And now we're going to go over to our button and we're going to scroll down to this on click entry area here. We're going to hit the plus button, and again we are going to drag scripts. We're going to put it in this field, and where it says no function, you guys want to click that and find the name of our script, which is jump button, and set up the jump void. And that is literally it, guys. So if we now hit play, you guys will see if you press the button, the character jumps, and let's say we're in the air and we keep pressing it, the player is not going to keep jumping until they hit the ground. And that is it, guys. If you have any questions or you want to see a little bit more in-depth tutorial on maybe how to do something like a double jump, please let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you later.